Alex Belfield.
We're live in Las Vegas today. We're talking to a big star from We Will Rock You. That was a title track. And this is Tony Vincent. How nice to see you again.
It's great to see you. Thank you.
I didn't recognize you this side of the Atlantic. I'm not used to talking to you in America.
It's the whole traffic issue. You're driving on the right side and everything changes.
If you can drive, that's the problem, you see. It's taken me an hour to get from the Luxor to here, which is about half a mile. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter if you drive in, if you have an American driver's license or not. It's just that the traffic is manic here.
Yeah, but you know the shortcuts, don't you?
There is no shortcut. Not in Vegas. Not really.
Right, let's talk about this show firstly. I saw you when it just opened in the West End, and Ben Elton's written this musical called We Will Rock You, which features the songs of Queen and his knob gags, basically, all his double entendres and funny lines, and then he's decided to bring it to America and put it into Vegas first. Do you think that was a good move, or should he have taken it straight to Broadway?
No, I think it was actually really smart. Vegas is, from what I understand, the #2 tourist spot next to Paris. So we get people from all different cultures and language barriers and everything are all presented here. So I think it was really smart because, if you go to Broadway and you open a show and it doesn't have the success that you initially thought it would, you really can't take it anywhere else. So I think that Vegas was a great sort of test market to find out, we get a little bit more of a globalized population to witness, this show, and it allows us to change some things and that sort of thing. So
I suppose in one way it's very similar to London then, because you get a lot of foreigners in that don't even speak English, let alone understand what you're saying. So it's the same kind of thing, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a luxury, actually, as a performer, because you get to test, jokes that necessarily work in one culture don't necessarily land in the other. So Ben has really sort of catered the dialogue and that sort of thing to sort of a more American audience.
I did an hour special with Ben Elton last year, and we were talking about you and the show, and he speaks very highly of you, as you well know, and he decided to bring you here. And were you glad to come across? I mean, how do you feel about being here in Vegas compared to the West End? Where were you happiest?
Wow. You know what? It's such a different show and a different audience that I don't want to say I favor one towards the other. There's different things that I like about both. I do love the more sarcastic tongue-in-cheek dialogue of the UK audience. And the way that script was written was really fun for me. At the same time here, it's different things for different people, and so it's more of a stretch to me as an artist as opposed to me favoring one more or the other.
And also, you don't have to do 2 shows a day here.
That is a blessing, absolutely. I think once they figured out that an artist, actor, singer couldn't do Freddie Mercury 8 times a week, every simultaneous company has been double cast. So,
who did you have to sleep with to get them to agree to give you a break and only make you do 1 show a day?
That's strictly confidential information.
No, I love the show in the West End. I was about the only journalist in the UK who really raved about We Will Rock You, because everybody likes to knock Ben Elton. I think if he'd have done the best show in the world, they'd have still knocked him, because for some reason people hate Ben Elton. I don't know why, but they do. And right now, a friend of mine, Maz Murray's playing Killer Queen in it. It's still a great show, and you've brought it here. Now, how does it compare? Because they have changed quite a lot, haven't they? It's got the same title, the music's the same, but the story is virtually different, is it?
Actually, the story is really the same, but the jokes have been rewritten for a much more American audience. You don't necessarily have the sort of, crass, more sarcastic sort of cutting jokes that come across as very funny in London. They come across as very harsh here. So we made it more of a much more palatable script to the American audience. I think it's really great. It's landing in a major way. And like you mentioned before, you know what? I think people on the underdog side, they're going to hate success stories. And Ben is such a talented individual. You're right. It doesn't matter if he wrote the next, Streetcar Named Desire, it wouldn't matter. People have that sort of apprehensive kind of, I'm going to knock you regardless of whatever you put on stage. Fortunately, the audience feels quite different.
What I loved about what you did in the West End was that it didn't matter what they wrote in the papers, and they can still continue to knock it. Every time they do a cast change and they promote it again, everybody says it's rubbish, but the people keep coming back and word has spread and it still sells out every night, and that's so great and rare, isn't it?
I think it is, but you're also dealing with, music that is timeless. We have a huge blessing of amazing songs that have spanned generations. And, regardless of what they think of the script, we're not trying to write Shakespeare here. And, if that's what they're going to the theater to see, they're going to the wrong show. So, we're more basically stringing along amazing songs, and presenting a rock and roll show with a theme that kind of, pokes fun at what's going on in American music today, and actually global music of things that have become a little bit more prefabricated and more designed before it actually hits the market. But you're also, I think now, fortunately, seeing rock and roll that's been done in a more authentic way, especially over the last probably 2 years since We Will Rock You opened, that we're dealing with a much more educated, I think, audience.
Has he kept the gag in about how we're going to get there? Bicycle.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I just needed to know that.
No, that wasn't too cutting, so that's fine.
Okay, so we found a level of that's acceptable, is it, here in America? Yeah. Let's talk about Vegas then, and what it's like living here. Because I mean, you first were a big star on Broadway in New York. The traffic's quite similar, isn't it?
Well, in New York, see, we get public transport, so we don't have to deal with this sort of traffic thing. But everybody has to drive here because there's no real central public transport system.
Right, okay, so aside from that, what is it like living here? Because I've asked all the performers, you presumably can't get involved in the buffets and the hedonism and everything that goes on here because you would just go crazy.
You would go crazy, and you'd probably, lose your voice and sort of lose your head. And I don't know. I mean, to me, it feels like living in suburbia because we all, I think the performers here, we don't live on the Strip. So the Strip is not what Vegas is as a whole. It's what normal tourists think Vegas is. So, I mean, there's such a dramatic part of the city that is away from that and removed. So it feels like I'm living in a regular sort of, medium to large city in America. It's actually very palatable here.
So it's okay?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a fan.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad about that. Now, you're a musical man as well as being a rock star. We'll talk about the stuff you do away from musicals in a minute, but do you miss the fact that you can't see other theatre here? I mean, there's Mamma Mia down the road, and there's the Blue Man Group, and then there's the comedy shows and the cabaret shows, but there's no other musical theatre, really. Do you miss that?
I don't. I've never been really drawn to musical theatre, but what I do miss is that, the House of Blues and the Hard Rock Cafe and that sort of thing here in Vegas have really fantastic theaters where, Oasis and Tears for Fears and Coldplay and all these bands, the Killers actually, who are from Vegas, are frequently playing, and I don't get a chance to see them. So that's the drawback for me, is because I'm a rock fan, not a musical theater fan. So it doesn't upset me that I can't go see one evening or so, or Mamma Mia or whatever. It upsets me that I can't go see whatever, a rock show. Yeah.
Doing four shows a week and presumably 4 nights a week must be great, though, because that gives you some time to actually have a life.
It does. And like I said, Vegas is a real palatable place for families and kids and that sort of thing. Now, I don't have one, but, if that opportunity comes along, this is a very I guess, user-friendly city.
I do hope Ben's paying you just as much, if not double, what he was paying you in the West End to do these 4 shows instead of 7.
Unfortunately, it's not up to Ben. I wish it was. I wish he had more pull. If you want to, after this interview, you can go talk to the producers, because unfortunately, that's not exactly the case.
Now, the last time we spoke, you'd just done this big thing in the UK with the Queen, and you'd performed to like 90 billion people around the world, and that's where most people will know you. And that was quite brave, wasn't it, singing Bohemian Rhapsody to all those people?
It was a day that I'll never forget. I mean, for a couple of reasons. I had a chance to meet Paul McCartney, which was, the Beatles really were the reason that I started this. I was 4 years old and I heard Hard Day's Night, and it really set me on the course of doing music for the rest of my life. That and the chance to front Queen in such a global setting. I don't really get nervous when I perform, but that really took me back and made me appreciative of what the opportunity was, but very also, there was a bit of fear involved in that because so many people were seeing this thing live. Yeah, I was quite scared, and fortunately, we pulled it off, I think, in a major way.
Absolutely, and Brian May was on the guitar for you. That's not bad to have him in your backing group, is it?
Yeah, not a bad thing.
All right, let's talk about your stuff that you do away from this musical, because you've got your own website, and you've got albums out, and you're a rock star, and I think that's somewhere, presumably in the future, that you'd like to go, is it, with your own show opposed to fronting this?
Yeah, absolutely. This has come... it came at a time where I needed to get out of New York. I needed to get away from a sort of big city atmosphere to kind of clear my head and focus on what I wanted to do for the next step of my career. And yeah, that's absolutely where my focus will be next.
All right, let's talk about your physicality, because you're looking so thin and fit at the same time. Are you okay? Are you enjoying it here? Why are you not, 700 pounds fatter with all these buffets and restaurants about?
Yeah, as a local, you don't go to the buffets. That's pretty much the end of a rock star's, or whatever, a performer's. You got to stay fit. This is it's not an amazingly physically taxing show, but you do need to be on your game, and